Listen, I don't know about y'all, but your boy's ready for the season. I got my chain ready for the Colorado game. If you're going to be at the Colorado game, you want to say what's up. I'm going to be in section 29. Look, look for this baby. I'll be wearing it the whole time. So y'all stay tuned and see me out there. But yeah, I'm fired up for the season. And yeah, I'm a little bit extra when I'm at the games. All right. But I digress. Let's go ahead and dive into some football. What's going on, guys? We are count them, 3 days away from football. From week one, Nebraska football, we finally get to see the fruits of the labor this offseason, see what we've been talking about this offseason, see how wrong we all are in a lot of ways. We are going to be wrong in a lot of ways. I'm going to be wrong in a lot of ways. But that's the fun of this football season. We get to see the stars come out of nowhere. We get to see the guys that maybe were unheralded coming out of camp, coming out of winter ball, the whole nine. Maybe when they get on the field, they start to show themselves or get an opportunity after a few injuries. There's some guys buried on the depth chart that I really like, especially in the running back room. And I'm going to talk about the running back room today. And I'm also going to get into a little small UTEP preview. I've already done a big overarching UTEP preview previously. Now, also, if you missed my live stream yesterday with Anthony Grant, that is on the channel, as well as it will be on Spotify if it's not already. We are now on Spotify and Amazon, but not on Apple just yet. So if you want to go over to Spotify, it's easier to listen over there. But yeah, it was a great interview with Anthony Grant. We went into his run versus Rutgers, where he laid the do out. He talked us through it and talked about turnovers, his thoughts on the running back room, et cetera. So a lot of good stuff over there if you want to go check it out. But let's go ahead and dive into the depth chart. And, I'll break down my initial thoughts looking over it. So let's go ahead and slide over. All right. So over here on the depth chart, of course, you have the career starts on offense, career starts on defense, et cetera. So, but let's go ahead and we'll go top to bottom and I'll break it down. So left tackle, Corcoran, not really a big surprise with a lot of the offensive linemen, pretty much nailed that. Justin Evans, the starter at the left guard, Ben Scott, center. One of the best in the country, Micah Mazuka, a guy I'm extremely excited about, has the potential to be our best graded offensive lineman at the right guard spot. At the right tackle, of course, we got Bryce Benhart, followed by Gunnar Gatula, Sam Sledge backing up the center. So we got a couple of guys that we've been talking about this offseason right there. Kind of might get an opportunity. We'll probably rotate in and get an opportunity. So we get to see some of these young guys really step up and play. Now, moving down to the tight end, of course, you got Fedoni at 1, Borkacher at 2, Lyndon Meyer at 3. Those guys are probably going to all play in multiple tight end sets. Satterfield likes to get in multiple tight end sets. He likes to get in big sets. He's a big huddle guy. So, and you'll see each of these guys be used to their strength. Of course, Fedoni is the best overall tight end, but as hard as Borkacher and Lindenmeyer play and do the dirty work, they're extremely useful to this team. Of course, Borkacher probably getting the majority of the work, also as a junior, along with Fedoni. So, yeah, of course, we're going to see Fedoni out there a lot, moved all over the place. So expect to see a good rotation of all of these tight ends. Moving down to the slot, we got Janiron Barner. Janiron Barner, 6'2", 220, sophomore. As we've heard Matt Rule say, he believes that Janiron Barner can be a NFL level fullback. And if you can be an NFL level fullback, also his athleticism out there that he talked about, but being an NFL fullback means you know how to block. You know how to do, again, the dirty work. You know how to do those things that come innately to him as being a fullback, as a guy who is a grinder, which a fullback position 100% is. So it's going to be helpful to having him, out there making blocks on the edge, but also taking advantage of athleticism and see what we got out there with him in the slot. That was very interesting. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, the backup in the slot there. IGC, of course, put on weight this offseason. He's feeling more explosive. He's feeling stronger. So, and is hopefully, the injuries, he kind of holds up. His body holds up this year, but it seems like he's put on a little bit more weight right now, sitting at 200, 6'1". And then we have Carter Nelson right there in the slot, 6'5", 230. Of course, the big time freshman, super athletic. And he's going to be utilized out there in probably certain packages. Depending on how he does, he'll probably be introduced a little bit more to the offense as the season goes. He was a late enrollee, so again, picking up on this stuff a little later than some of these other guys. So expect to see Carter on the field and maybe see an expanded role as the season goes along, depending on how he does, which I expect him to do fantastic, of course. Jamal Banks over at the XY receiver spot with Jalen Lloyd second, Malachi Coleman behind him. So, and now with the order of this and the wide receivers, again, these guys are going to be positioned all over the place. Jamal Banks, it's listed Jamal Banks, Jalen Lloyd, Malachi. Um, but when Jamal Banks is out and there's a play that Jamal Banks, would normally run, it's probably going to be Malachi in there, right? The big bodied 6'4" for Jamal Banks, 6'5" for Malachi, 220 for Jamal Banks, 210 for Malachi. And of course, Jalen Lloyd's probably not going to be running the same type of plays that they would. So even though this is ordered like this, I still kind of see Malachi as kind of the backup X to Jamal. And then over on the Y side, we got Isaiah Nair, Corey Barney, sorry, and Alex Bullock. Just a solid group here. Isaiah Nair, 6'4", 220 again, but he's a burner, playmaker, can do a lot of different things. He does know how to utilize his body, but he's not quite a possession guy like Jamal Banks is. But we're going to take advantage of his speed and athleticism and get him in space. That's the biggest thing for Isaiah Nair. Corey Barney, the same thing, man. You should want him to operate in space, 6 foot 170, and he's shifty, right? As we know, Corey Barney is shifty and he can get out there and he can make some plays. So you want to get the ball in his hands. Alex Bullock, I do like the mixture of kind of size that they have at each of these, but just it kind of lends to the fact that this depth chart offensively is just going to be constantly moving just because of the positionless style that they want to run, which brings me down here to quarterback and running back. Dylan Raiola, of course, a starter, Heinrich Harburg, the 2 as expected, and Danny Kalen, the 3. Now with Jalen Gramstead, I had held firm this offseason talking about him that he came in so late in the process, he wasn't able to go through a full offseason and had so much to learn. He has to completely learn this offense. And I mean, more so than other players. Like as a quarterback, you have to master the offense and know where everybody needs to be at all times. And so it was an uphill battle for him. So we'll see how that transpires, but I expect him to be a leader in that room, a coach in that room, a guy with winning experience in that room. And I think ultimately still that he will be brought on as a grad assistant and, a coach for Matt Rule because that's what he aspires to be. So best of luck to him in that. But you run a situation here where, Danny Kalen is the 3rd, but, if you potentially, let's say injuries happen, let's hope not, plays more than 4 games. Who knows? Maybe, if the first 2 guys get hurt, then you're in a position where you don't want to burn Danny's red shirt. Maybe then you flirt with Gramstead, but that is in case of a disaster. So let's just hope that that doesn't happen. Now, moving to the big one, the running back room. This has been a big topic of discussion here. We got Ramir at 1, but it's an or. So it's a bunch of ors. So there's really no 1, 2, 3, 4. It's Ramir or Emmett or Gabe or Dante Dowdle. Okay, so now looking at this running back room, Emmett Johnson to me is the best overall running back in this room with Ramir right there. And Anthony Grant, when he came on yesterday, we were talking about the running back room. And he mentioned Emmett's his guy. He had all glowing things to say about Emmett and how good he is and how good he thinks he can be. And Emmett really stood out to him as well, which was interesting to hear. And Ramir, is solid as can be. Chancellor Brewington talks about him a lot and just his ability and what he saw in Ramir from what he, saw when he was there. And Ramir is a kind of do-it-all type of back, but he carries, good size as well, 5'10", 200. You got Emmett at 5'11", 200, so both big body guys. And you got the big bruisers. We got the Gabe Irvin, 6'1", 220, Dante Dowdle, 6'2", 225. So it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. There was a conversation I had with some people or that they were having on Twitter about who they think is going to come out with the first play. Well, looking at the depth chart from last year, I don't necessarily know if there were ors on the depth chart last year. I looked, I didn't think I saw any at the running back room. But however, Ramir was 1, and Gabe was 2, Anthony Grant was 3. and Ramir came out and had the first carry of the game and didn't run the ball after that. And then Gabe Ervin ended up with 7 carries, and Anthony Grant ended up with 9. So the third on the depth chart finished with 9. So, like, again, just depending on the situation will determine probably who's the first one out there. It very much depends on probably the play call. They're going to have a very structured drive, try to structure the first couple of drives. So they'll probably have the guy that plays the best in that play. They do pay attention to that in practices. Who runs particular plays the best so they can give them the best advantage out there. Now, again, they don't just run those guys out there every single time they run that play. It's a rotation, but those guys probably at the first time running it this season, probably going to be the guys who ran it the best in practice. So, and with that being said, depending on the play we run, it could also change based on, how UTEP does if they come out with the ball the first time, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure they're going to stay to this strict scripted drive that they have in place. But yeah, man, this running back room is deep. And another guy was talking about very deep on the depth chart that I would not mind seeing is going to be my apologies, Maurice Mazuka, brother of Micah Mazuka, actually. So, and I'm sorry, I closed that so much for y'all, made it smaller. But yeah, Maurice Mazuka, who ran well in the spring game, and he's a guy who EJ Barthel earlier this offseason said he can finish a game with. So, the running back room is very, very deep. I have no concerns about this running back room. Now, moving down to the defensive depth chart. They got the black shirts, of course, Cam Linhart being the extra black shirt, which well-deserved. Ty Robinson at 1, Riley Van Poppel 2. I mean, and Kai Welling 3. That's a hell of a defensive end room. We were so deep at the end. Nash Hutmacher, of course, in the middle at the nose. Elijah Judy, Vincent Jackson there. Jamari Butler, Cam Linhart, James Williams. Again, defensive end is just insanely stacked. John Bullock and Vincent Shavers at linebacker. That is a solid duo right there, because you have John Bullock with the experience and you have Vincent Shavers as the new young buck with all the talent in the world, and being behind a guy like John Bullock, who replaced, oh my God, Javen Wright. Sorry, apologies about that. It's good leadership for him to have, and a good guy for him to be mentored by, and that's only going to help Vincent Shavers get better. Vincent Shavers, again, is a guy who's going to fly to the football. The only thing that you worry about a little bit, and this isn't a worry, like he's already so far advanced from where he is, right? The only thing with him being so raw, which is just natural how it is when you come into college football, is he may occasionally be out of position, but he's going to accidentally make plays just by the way he flies to the football, by the way he plays the game, and he plays with a lot of instinct. He plays with reckless abandon. So he's going to be a guy who is going to make plays happen sometimes without even realize it. And sometimes he's going to make big plays because he just knows innately where to be. And then other times he may miss a spot here and there. But we're all super excited to see Vincent Shavers, of course. Now, Mekhi Gaber at linebacker, my boy Steph Thompson second. But again, the depth chart here. So the defense wants to rotate between 17 and 25 guys. So keep that in mind, 17 to 25 guys. So again, these depth charts are one thing. And then, of course, Stephon got in here from Syracuse and had a lot to learn about the way Nebraska runs this operation. He was a little slower coming along, came in a little bit out of shape. I'm sure that hurt him in that regard. But I definitely expect Steph to be one of our better players on defense, 100%. MJ Sherman, and Princewell being the jack, of course, either one of those guys can be the starter at that position and play well. Good problem to have. Cornerback, Tommy Hill, Amari Sanders. Tommy Hill, I've talked about him enough. That guy is going to be excellent, potential first-round draft potential, in my opinion. Rovers, Isaac Gifford, Ramir Stewart. It's almost like Giff is flying under the radar because he's so good. And there's so many young guys on this team to talk about. It's like Giff is like almost a overlooked part of the defense, which is crazy. Malcolm Harzog at safety, Derek Branch as the backup, and over at the other safety spot, Deshaun Singleton, Kobe Bretz right there. Cornerback, Marquise Buford, Sierra Wright, and Bly Hill. Bly Hill at 6'4", 190. I really hope he can come back and be the starter at that cornerback spot. We need that long, rangy, athletic type of corner. We have the 6 foot 205 Tommy Hill put on 20 pounds so he can be better at the run stop and be more explosive. So expect him to be even better as an all around player on this defense this year. And, you know, Sierra Wright, similar in terms of, his height. He doesn't have the length, but Sierra makes up for that in ball skills and his just athletic ability and coverage skills. But Bly having, that 6'4" body, having, the long arms, being able to go up and kind of knock balls down or make it more difficult on the guy because he's just tall, long, and rangy. Bly Hill will probably be the guy, hopefully, when he gets back from injury. Now down here, we got an or for the place kicker, Alvano John Hull. Of course, Alvano is my guy. I really like Alvano. If he's healthy, I want him out there. I think he can really recover from last season. Brian Buschini, Camden Cook there. Jury's out. And then at kick returner, we got Ramir and Ja'Cory Barney. So that'll round it out there for the depth chart. Just a quick kind of overview of my thoughts on the depth chart. Now, looking at a quick UTEP preview, I'm going to dive just slightly into that. Again, I've dove into that before, just a little game preview of what I expect. So, all right. So first things first, let's go ahead and just break down kind of what Matt Rule talked about with UTEP, just a very high level overview. UTEP, they run that spread, very fast paced offense, which does help because Nebraska runs a 3-3-5, which is designed to give you more defensive speed, replaces a defensive lineman with a defensive back. And the whole point of that defense, it was designed to help keep up with the faster pace spread offenses of the game. With that comes inherent risk. It's a little bit more susceptible on the edges and down the seams in the pass game, as well as it's a numbers game, right? You really, like, let's say for the 3-3-5 for Nebraska, Nash's job is to muddy things up and really have as many blockers try to focus on him as possible so Nebraska can get numbers on their offense. UTEP is going to want to get numbers on Nebraska's defense. So they're going to find different ways to try to make that happen. Whereas if our defensive linemen can really control that line of scrimmage and force people to step in and try to block them, especially the nose, because that's specific design here. That wreaking havoc will really make it harder for them to have numbers and will set our defense up, especially better on the edges, etc. So, and give those defensive ends a chance to really get out there and get open on those runs and not have a blocker and be able to come in and stop those. With that being said, UTEP, they also run a 3-3-5, which I'll dive into in just a second. Rule talks about them wanting to throw a bunch of plays out there, play 200 plays, whatever, but be able to take shots. And this is a team that doesn't expect to win, and those teams are dangerous, of course. However, I just don't think UTEP has the talent. They're a 3-win team. They're in a transition year under Scotty Walden. I've talked about that plenty. So, I do expect them to pull some tricks out of a hat. They're going to try to find explosive plays. They do have an understanding of the 3-3-5, so they do know ways to exploit it, to an extent. So we'll see if they're able to kind of do that. But again, I think the talent on the defensive side of the ball for Nebraska will rule the day. And even if they get numbers, I still think it's going to be hard pressed for them moving the ball. However, there could be a potential where, when you run that many plays, you're bound to potentially spring one. So, I'll get to a little bit of final score at the end. Prediction, which I'm not very good at predicting final scores, but we'll get into it. But yeah, the defense just really needs to have each individual person do their job. If everybody's in their assignments, they will be fine, right? And this defense we saw last year is very good at staying with their assignments, knowing where they need to be and executing well from that. You're not as, like, with the run game and the run defense being the strength of a 3-3-5 last year, that right there shows you that this defense knows exactly where they need to be at all times, and they're in position. So with another year under their belt, a little bit more familiar with this defense, and then also the extra talent development on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be fun to watch. And expect UTEP to be aggressive on fourth downs. They're probably, again, they're playing with nothing to lose. So, backs against the wall, if they get fourth and shorts, expect them to go for it. And again, they also run the 3-3-5. So, Nebraska also has an advantage offensively because they run against Tony White's, really, really strong, versatile 3-3-5 in practice. So, they run against the same defensive practices they're going to see out there with UTEP, um, but it's going to be a much weaker defense and probably a less, I guess, fundamentally sound defense, just because, again, it's year one under that. So, but let's go ahead and, try to dive into just a little bit of the numbers from whenever Scotty Walden was at Austin P last year. So, looking at the overall numbers here. So points per game, 34 to 24. We're really trying to look at the offense here. So, 409 points total, giving up 293. So, rushing first downs, 104, 114 passing. So you can see that they tend to mix it up a pretty good bit. They try to balance it out, similar to what Nebraska is going to want to do. And moving down to the rushing, they average 4.1 yards per game, 152 average per game, 18 touchdowns for a total of 1,800. Now, conversely, moving that down here, so you look at about 152 to 274 average per game. That is almost identical to what Baylor's offense, numbers-wise, looked like under Satterfield and Matt Rule when he was there, just in terms of that percentage there. 8.84 average yards per attempt, touchdowns 30. And so you got 30 touchdowns here, 18 touchdowns here. So again, they're spread them out offense, but they are gonna stick to a little bit of a run game. Total plays 816, 6.3 average yards per play, 426 per game, 51-21 total yards, 53 touchdowns. Now, so looking at that, and then we come down here, third down conversions. They convert at a 35.37% rate. Fourth downs, 13-23 at 56.52% rate, which is very, very good. Fumbles lost, say 11 fumbles, lost 5. Sacks and yard loss, 18-116. So, looking through these numbers here, again, this is also at Austin P, which is a, weaker school that does have an easy schedule. They played Tennessee, I believe, last year. I think it was last year. So they do have, Walden does have experience against, bigger time opponents. So I think he'll have this team ready to go. It's just a matter of how, ready that team can be for a team like Nebraska, who's really coming into this season with a lot of momentum and really has a lot to prove this year. And that starts in week 1. So, I know UTEP has their backs against the wall and are really in a tough situation here, but Nebraska in many ways feels like their backs against the wall. Like they really need to come out and show themselves to really put the college football world on alert and say, hey, Nebraska might be legit. And then rolling into week 2 against Colorado, it's another chance to prove the medal. You win those first couple of games and you win them, pretty convincingly. Or even if you just win one convincingly, because, again, Nebraska in past still hasn't been able to fully take care of teams they should take care of, and should be quote unquote easy victories. But I will say that a image I saw earlier has Nebraska at about a 95.8% chance to win this game. I think this game ends up about maybe 45-10. I think the only time they pull the starters is if this game is out of hand between the third and fourth quarter, beyond 3 touchdowns. If UTEP is within 3 touchdowns and driving at the end of the third, then maybe you leave them out there a little longer, but you really just want to put your foot on the gas and learn how to finish games. So they might do that. That's something Nebraska hasn't done, as we know, has been able to come out and finish games. So it'll be interesting to see how they play that out and how this game goes. And again, just very, very exciting stuff. And can't wait for this game. And again, if you are going to be at the Colorado game, let me know below if you want to say hi. Feel free. Look for the chain that you saw in the beginning of the video. And yeah, hopefully I'll see y'all out there. But I'll be posting every day, basically, this season, except when I'm out of town for the Colorado game. I'll still be trying to post then, but stay tuned for tomorrow's video and all the videos coming up. And reminder, I do live post games, and I plan on having Wilson Dittman join me on the post games this season. So get ready for those as well. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.